Hey everybody, my name is Ivica. Thank you so much for joining me on the latest episode of I'm Gaming Podcast. This is a podcast about the video game industry, entrepreneurship, gaming nostalgia, new fantasy RPG games that you can try out on Steam, and many other cool things I find to be in the same realm of business and creative ventures. Like always, first and foremost, a big, huge thanks goes to my Patreon supporters who really and truly continue to make this venture that I have, this podcast, possible. So a big thanks to everyone, and please check out their ventures in the description below. But this episode is all about a game that is, for me at least, really hard to pronounce but really easy to see the appeal. It's called NYIP, so it's basically NYIP if I'm reading it correctly, but if not, I'm sorry. However, it's a really cool game that recently appeared on Steam. I've been following its development for some time now, but recently it got its demo that you can now try out on Steam for free, of course. And why should you do it? Well, it has several elements around it that are really appealing in my view and interesting and novel. And the fact is, the first one is that it's an action RPG in a fantasy setting, but also one that is taking place in the medieval Serbia. Now, of course, I'm based and born and raised in the Republic of Serbia, so this is naturally interesting to me, but it still has a broader appeal because the setting actually begins on the day after, the first morning after the famous Battle of Kosovo, which took place back in 1389. And in this case, after a massive bloody battle, the storyline of the game includes a fantasy element, a kind of outward element that involves an awakening of outwardly forces of ancient gods, demons, and death spirits from the folklore of the Slavic nations, of the Slavic people, and sets the tone of the game, places the player in a situation where they have to fight and try to restore the normalcy, let's call it like that, restore the actual real world instead of allowing it to kind of morph into something horrible. This is an interesting concept because it blends real history with a fantasy setup of a grim, dark fantasy kind of world, and it's also interesting that it's a top-down game. It's a top-down RPG with Souls-like combat, so everyone who loves Souls-like games will probably find the combat interesting and appealing, and this combination narratively is something that sounds and seems to me like a really interesting take on the real-world history, but also the Slavic mythology. Of course, the most important thing, at least in my view, is the fact that you can try out NYIP, NYIP, on Steam right now and see how it all feels and looks to you. The thing that I saw immediately is that the level design is really interesting. The same goes for character design and other elements that are world building in a visual sense, and these blend really well with the storyline of kind of real history and fantasy combined together. The developers of the game, My 2 Pixels, are a new company. This is their first game as far as I know, and something that they clearly invested a lot of time, effort, and passion into. They've been promoting the game prior to its demo being released for some time. I saw that, I followed that up. That's also a really good sign in my view. Shows that the team is committed, that the project is something that is ready and willing to be taken to whatever lengths necessary by the team to get it to the audience. However, in this case, the big thing that we can do as a community, as gamers, and as people who are generally interested in RPGs, fantasy, and history, is to check out the game's demo and, of course, wishlist it on Steam. Those wishlists really make a lot of difference, and I'm certain that this game would really appreciate your wishlist. So the link to the game is in the description below. Check it out, try it out, wishlist it, and get it when it comes out. I really think it's going to be well worth your time if you're into Souls-like RPGs, action RPGs, and fantasy settings, fantasy narratives, because it clearly has a lot to offer. There it is, that's all for this episode of I'm Gaming Podcast. Thank you so much for being here, thanks so much for listening. If you'd like to support me, please check out my Patreon page, check out my channel memberships, check out my books on Amazon, The cheapest, easiest, fastest way to support me though, you ask? Well, it's to subscribe to my channel and be here for my new clips. That's all from me. My name is Ivica. Have a great week. Try out wishlist, NYIP or NYIP, and I'll talk to you in precisely 7 days from now. Until then, bye bye.